My hands are shaking so hard I can barely hold the phone. The lawyer sitting across from me just slid a document over the mahogany desk, a document that says I now own 49% of Henderson Construction, the biggest building company in Texas. 49%. That's $87 million. I'm 28 years old, I've got $63 in my checking account, and until 3 weeks ago, I was living paycheck to paycheck in a studio apartment in South Austin, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how a random Tuesday in September completely destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life. Real quick before I continue, if you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life confessions. Trust me, this story gets even crazier. Let's get in. So, my name's Jake Morrison, and up until a month ago, I was just another guy in a hard hat, making $22 an hour doing concrete work for Henderson Construction. I'd been with the company for about 2 years, and honestly, it was the best job I'd had since dropping out of community college. My dad died when I was 19. Heart attack. Totally unexpected, and I had to quit school to help my mom with the bills. She worked 2 jobs her whole life, and I wasn't about to let her lose the house. I lived in this tiny studio off South Congress. The AC barely worked, my neighbors fought literally every single night, and I could hear every word through the paper-thin walls. But it was mine, you know? I paid my $950 rent every month, bought my groceries at the H-E-B down the street, and tried to save maybe $100 here and there. My truck, a beat-up 2008 Ford F-150 with 190,000 miles on it, was held together basically by duct tape and prayers. The crew I worked with was solid. There was Miguel, this guy from El Paso who could lay foundation faster than anyone I'd ever seen. Then there was Chris, who never shut up about the Cowboys, and Tommy, who was always trying to get us to go to happy hour at Chili's even though we were all broke. We worked on commercial buildings mostly, strip malls, office complexes, that kind of thing. Hard work, long days, but I didn't mind. I was good with my hands, and there was something satisfying about seeing a building go up, knowing you helped build it. "Yo, Jake!" Miguel called out one morning as I was pulling my tools from my truck. "You see the new site plans? We're doing that huge development off Research Boulevard, like 6 months of steady work, man." "That's what I'm talking about," I said, grabbing my tool belt. "Maybe I can finally fix my AC." Tommy laughed. "Dude, just come crash at my place when it gets too hot. My roommate won't even notice." "Your roommate notices everything," I shot back. "Remember when I ate one of his Hot Pockets? I thought he was going to file a police report." That was my life. Simple, predictable, broke, but honestly, I was okay with it. I had good people around me. My mom was healthy, and I was making enough to get by. But I had no idea what was coming next. The project on Research Boulevard was massive. This mixed-use development with retail space, luxury apartments, and underground parking. Henderson Construction had the contract, and they'd pulled in crews from 3 different sites to get it done on schedule. Our foreman, a guy named Dale, who looked like he ate nails for breakfast, gave us the safety briefing on the first day. "Listen up," Dale barked, clipboard in hand. "This is a high-visibility project. The owner's going to be on site sometimes checking progress. That means hard hats at all times, safety vests, and for God's sake, clean up your Whataburger wrappers. I don't want this place looking like a dump." "The owner's coming here?" Chris whispered to me. "I've worked for Henderson for 5 years and never seen the guy. Probably just wants to make sure we don't screw up his fancy development." First 2 weeks were normal. We poured foundations, set up forms, the usual stuff. It was early September, still hot as hell in Austin, and by noon every day I was drenched in sweat. I'd take my lunch break, sitting in whatever shade I could find, usually scrolling through my phone and eating the turkey sandwich I'd packed that morning. That's when I first saw her. It was a Tuesday, around 1 p.m. I was sitting against a concrete barrier, almost done with my sandwich, when I heard voices arguing near the construction trailer. I looked up and saw this girl, maybe 18, 19 years old, standing near the edge of the site. She was dressed totally wrong for a construction zone. Sundress, sandals, long dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, and she was having a heated conversation on her phone. "I don't care what Mom says," she was saying, her voice rising. "I'm not going back to Vanderbilt. I'm done with that place. I'm literally standing here right now, and you can't make me." I was about to look away, none of my business, when I saw it. She was backing up as she argued, getting closer and closer to the excavation pit we'd dug that morning. A 20-foot drop into rebar and concrete forms. "Hey!" I jumped up, dropping my sandwich. "Hey! Stop!" She couldn't hear me over her phone conversation. 3 more steps and she'd be over the edge. I didn't think. I just ran. My boots pounded against the dirt, and I covered the 30 yards between us in maybe 5 seconds. Just as her foot went back over empty air, I grabbed her arm and yanked her forward. We both went sprawling into the dirt, and her phone went flying. "What the?" she started, furious, scrambling to her feet. Then she looked behind her and saw the pit. Her face went white. "Oh my God." "Yeah," I said, breathing hard, brushing dirt off my jeans. "You almost became part of the foundation permanently." She just stared at the edge, then at me, then back at the edge. I didn't see." "You weren't looking," I said, trying not to sound too harsh. She was clearly shaken. "This is a construction site. You can't just walk around here. It's dangerous." "I know. She ran her hands through her hair. "I needed somewhere to make a phone call. Somewhere private." "Well, maybe try Starbucks next time." I picked up her phone and handed it to her. The screen was cracked. "Sorry about that." "No, I'm sorry," she said quickly. "You just saved my life. I'm Emma Henderson." The name didn't register at first. "Jake Morrison. And seriously, you need to get out of here before Dale sees you. He'll lose his mind." "Dale Patterson?" She smiled a little. "He's worked for my dad for like 15 years. He won't say anything to me." That's when it clicked. Henderson, as in Henderson Construction, as in the owner's daughter. "Oh," I said stupidly. You're Mr. Henderson's daughter?" "Unfortunately," she said, and there was something bitter in her voice. "Look, thank you. Really, I owe you one." Before I could respond, she was walking away, heading toward a white Tesla parked on the street. I stood there in the dirt, my heart still racing, wondering what the hell just happened. Little did I know, that was just the beginning. The rest of that day was normal. I didn't mention the incident to anyone. Seemed like it would just be weird to say, "Hey guys, I saved the boss's daughter from falling into a pit." But I couldn't stop thinking about it. The way she'd said, "unfortunately," when talking about being a Henderson. The phone call about not going back to Vanderbilt. There was clearly some family drama going on. "You okay, man?" Miguel asked me around 3 p.m. "You've been weird all afternoon." "Yeah, just thinking about stuff," I said, tightening a bolt on a form. "Thinking about your broke AC, probably," Tommy joked. "Seriously, dude, come stay with me this weekend. We can watch the game, drink some beers, pretend we have money." I laughed. "Yeah, maybe." But that night, lying in my sweltering studio apartment with a box fan pointed directly at my face, I kept replaying that moment, the look on Emma's face when she realized how close she'd come to dying, the way she'd said her name like it was some kind of burden. I didn't see her again for almost a week. Work continued. We were ahead of schedule, which meant Dale was actually in a good mood for once. Then, on Monday morning, there was a black Range Rover parked near the construction trailer. Dale was standing next to it, talking to a man in his 60s wearing an expensive suit. "That's gotta be Henderson," Chris muttered to me. "Look at that watch. That's like a $50,000 Rolex." The man was tall, gray-haired, with the kind of presence that made everyone stand a little straighter. He was inspecting the site, nodding at whatever Dale was saying. Then Emma got out of the Range Rover's passenger seat. She saw me immediately and waved. Actually waved, like we were friends. Mr. Henderson noticed and said something to her. She said something back, pointing in my direction. Then they were both walking toward me. "Oh, crap," I muttered. "Did you do something?" Miguel hissed. "I don't know," I whispered back. "Jake Morrison?" Mr. Henderson's voice was deep, authoritative. He extended his hand. "Robert Henderson. I understand you met my daughter last week." I shook his hand, probably too hard because I was nervous. "Yes, sir. She was just—" "She told me what happened," he interrupted, but he was smiling. "She told me you saved her life." I mean, I just pulled her back from a 20-foot drop that would have killed her," he finished. "Emma's had some difficulties lately, family issues. She wasn't paying attention to where she was going. You acted without hesitation. That takes character." I didn't know what to say. "Anyone would have done the same thing, sir." "You'd be surprised," he said quietly. Then louder, "I'd like to take you to dinner this Friday, both you and your mother. Emma told me you dropped out of school to help her after your father passed. I respect that kind of loyalty." My brain short-circuited. "Dinner? Sir, you don't have to." "I want to," he said firmly. "Consider it a thank you. Friday, 7 p.m. I'll have my assistant send you the details." Before I could process what was happening, he was walking back to his Range Rover. Emma gave me a little smile and a shrug before following him. Miguel grabbed my shoulder. Dude, what just happened?" "I have no idea," I said honestly. What happened next completely blindsided me. That week dragged by. I told my mom about the dinner invitation, and she practically had a heart attack. "Jake, this is the man who owns the entire company," she said over FaceTime. I'd driven to her house in Round Rock to tell her in person. "We need to figure out what to wear. I don't have anything nice enough for wherever he's taking us." "Mom, it's fine," I said, though I was equally stressed. "He probably just wants to say thank you in person, and that'll be it." "Still," she fussed, already going through her closet. "I'm wearing my church dress, the navy blue one, and you need to get a haircut." "My hair is fine." "Jacob Anthony Morrison, you're getting a haircut." So I got a haircut. I also bought a button-down shirt from Target for $24.99 that I absolutely could not afford. By Friday, I was a nervous wreck. The restaurant turned out to be Eddie V's downtown, the kind of place where the cheapest thing on the menu was like $40. My mom held my arm as we walked in, both of us feeling completely out of place. Robert Henderson was already there, sitting in a private section at the back. Emma was with him, wearing a simple black dress, looking way more comfortable than the last time I'd seen her. "Mrs. Morrison." Robert stood up and shook my mom's hand. "Thank you for coming. Please, sit." The next 2 hours were honestly surreal. Robert asked my mom about her work. She was a supervisor at a call center, and asked me about the construction job, about what I wanted to do with my life. I told him I'd always thought about maybe becoming a project manager someday if I could ever afford to finish school. "Why did you drop out?" Emma asked. It was the first time she'd really spoken directly to me. "My dad died," I said simply. "Someone had to help with bills. Mom was already working herself to death. It just made sense." "That's exactly what I'm talking about," Robert said, setting down his wine glass. "Character, sacrifice. You put your family first. That's increasingly rare these days." "Dad," Emma said quietly, looking down at her plate. There was tension there. I could feel it, but Robert just smiled and changed the subject, asking about my truck, about where I lived, about my life. It felt less like dinner and more like an interview, but a comfortable. Then, as dessert arrived, some fancy chocolate thing I couldn't pronounce, Robert leaned back in his chair. "Jake, I'm going to be direct with you," he said. "I'm 64 years old. I built Henderson Construction from nothing 40 years ago. We now do over $200 million in revenue annually. We have 300 employees, and I have no one to leave it to." I glanced at Emma. She was staring at her dessert like she wanted to disappear. "Emma's my only child," Robert continued, "and she has made it abundantly clear she has no interest in the business. She wants to be a teacher, work with underprivileged kids. Noble, but not exactly what I built this company for." "Dad, please," Emma said, her voice tight. "I'm not criticizing you, sweetheart," he said, but there was frustration in his voice. "I'm stating facts. The point is, Jake, I've been thinking a lot this week about succession planning, about what happens to Henderson Construction when I'm gone, and I keep coming back to you." My mouth went dry. "Sir?" "You acted without hesitation to save my daughter's life," he said. "You sacrificed your education for your family. You work hard. Dale Patterson tells me you're one of the best young workers he's seen in years. You're exactly the kind of person I want representing my company." I don't understand what you're saying," I managed. Robert smiled. I'm saying I want to offer you a position. Management training. Starting salary of $90,000 a year. Full benefits. Company truck. I'll pay for you to finish your degree. Any school you want, we'll cover it. And if you prove yourself over the next few years, we'll talk about a more permanent role in the company. The room tilted. $90,000? I made $22 an hour. That was less than 50 grand a year before taxes. You're serious, I said stupidly. Completely, Robert said. I've built an empire, Jake. I'm not going to watch it crumble because I don't have anyone to pass it to. Emma's made her choice. But you could be the answer I've been looking for. I looked at my mom. She had tears in her eyes. Then at Emma, who looked miserable. Then back at Robert Henderson. I don't know what to say, I whispered. Say yes, he said simply. And God help me, I did. I thought that was bad. But then, the next month was absolutely insane. One day, I was pouring concrete in steel-toed boots. The next, I was sitting in an office on the 10th floor of Henderson Construction's headquarters, wearing slacks and dress shoes that gave me blisters. Robert moved fast, like scary fast. Within a week, I had business cards that said, Jake Morrison, Management Associate. I had a new truck, a 2024 Ford F-250, still had the dealer plates on it. I had an apartment in a nice complex in North Austin with actual working AC and a gym I'd never used. My mom cried for like 3 days straight. Happy tears, but still. Your father would be so proud, she kept saying, which made me tear up too. The crew from my old site couldn't believe it. Miguel made me promise I wouldn't forget about them when I was running the company. Tommy joked that I should give him a raise. Chris just kept shaking his head and saying, That's the craziest thing I've ever heard, man. But here's the thing. It was weird. Really weird. I'd eat lunch in the executive dining room with company VPs who'd been in the industry for 30 years, and they'd look at me like I was some kind of alien. I heard whispers in the hallways. That's the kid who saved Henderson's daughter. I heard he's being groomed to take over. Must be nice to save the right person. Robert didn't seem to notice or care. He threw me into the deep end immediately. Project management meetings, budget reviews, client presentation. I was learning more in a day than I had in 2 years on the construction sites. He'd call me into his office at random times to ask my opinion on things I had no business having opinions about. What do you think about expanding into the Houston market? He'd ask. Seems like a lot of competition there, sir, I'd say, making it up as I went. Good instinct, he'd nod. That's exactly what my VP of operations said. Emma, on the other hand, I barely saw. She'd left Austin a week after that dinner, gone back to Nashville to finish her degree at Vanderbilt. She'd texted me once. Good luck with my dad. Try not to let him consume your entire life. There was something sad about that message, but I was too overwhelmed to think about it much. By mid-October, Robert started talking about me joining him for site visits with major clients. You need to see how deals are made, he'd say. Construction is about relationships as much as concrete. Then, on a Friday afternoon, his assistant Lisa knocked. Mr. Henderson wants to see you. Conference room A. Conference room A was the big one. Floor-to-ceiling windows, huge mahogany table, the works. I walked in, expecting another train project specs. Instead, Robert was standing there with 3 men in expensive suits I didn't recognize. Emma was there, back from Nashville, looking. Jake, Robert said, his voice strange. Sit down. We need to talk. The ice in his voice made my stomach drop. Is everything okay? That depends on your definition of okay, one of the suits said. He was older, balding, with wire-rimmed glasses. I'm Richard Keating, Mr. Henderson's personal attorney. These gentlemen are also attorneys representing Henderson Construction's interests. Attorneys? I looked at Robert. Sir, what's going on? Emma made a sound, half laugh, half sob. Tell him, Dad. Tell him the truth. Robert's face was stone. 3 weeks ago, I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors give me 6 months at most. The room went silent. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. What? But you seem... You're fine. I'm dying, Jake, he said flatly. I've been dying since August, before I met you, before any of this. My mind was racing. I don't understand. The job, the training, the will. Richard Keating interrupted. Mr. Henderson has made significant changes to his estate planning in light of his diagnosis. We need to discuss those changes with you. With me? My voice came out way too high. Why would you need to discuss his will with me? Emma stood up abruptly. Because he's leaving half the company to you, Jake. 49% of Henderson Construction. That's why. The world stopped. What? Emma gets the other 51%, Robert said calmly, like he was discussing the weather. Controlling interest goes to her because she's my daughter. But you get 49% of the shares, a seat on the board, and equal say in major business decisions. The estate is worth approximately $187 million. Your share is worth about $87 million. I couldn't breathe, literally could not make my lungs work. You've known me for 5 weeks. 5 weeks, Robert agreed, in which you've shown more dedication, more natural business instinct, and more integrity than anyone I've met in 40 years in this industry. This is insane. I stood up, nearly knocking my chair over. You can't just give me $87 million. I saved your daughter from falling into a pit. That's it. That's all I did. You did more than that, Robert said, and for the first time his voice cracked slightly. You gave me hope that maybe someone actually gives a damn about doing the right thing. Emma doesn't want this company. She's told me that 1,000 times. I refuse to let everything I built be sold off to some corporate vulture when I die. You're young, you're smart, and you actually care. That's all I need. Nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to discover. This isn't legal, I said desperately, looking at the lawyers. He's clearly not in his right mind. Undue influence or whatever. Someone will contest this. Richard Keating shook his head. Mr. Henderson has been evaluated by 3 separate psychiatrists. He's completely competent to make these decisions. We've documented everything meticulously. The will is ironclad. Emma, I turned to her. You can't be okay with this. It's your inheritance. She laughed bitterly. Oh, I get $100 million and a company I never wanted. Yeah, I'm devastated. That's not what I mean, and you know it, I shot back. This is your father's life work, your family legacy. I'm nobody. Exactly, she said, and her eyes were blazing now. You're nobody, which means you haven't been crushed by the weight of being a Henderson your entire life. You don't have to live up to impossible expectations. You don't have to sacrifice everything you want to please a father who built an empire, but forgot to build a relationship with his daughter. Emma, Robert started. No, Dad, she cut him off. We're doing this now. You want Jake to know the truth? Fine. Let's tell him everything. Tell him about Mom. Robert's jaw clenched. Your mother is irrelevant to this discussion. Is she? Emma's voice rose. Tell him why she left. Tell him what you chose over your own family. The room was crackling with tension. The lawyers looked deeply uncomfortable. My wife left me 20 years ago, Robert said quietly, not looking at Emma. She said I cared more about the company than our family. She remarried and lives in California. Emma chose to stay with me. I chose? Emma's voice broke. I was 8 years old, Dad. 8. And you know what I remember most about my childhood? You missing every single school play, every parent-teacher conference, every birthday party, because you had a critical meeting or a major client dinner. This company was your first love. Your only... I gave you everything, Robert said, his voice hard. Except yourself, Emma shot back. And now you're dying, and instead of actually dealing with our relationship, you're doing exactly what you always do. You're focusing on the business. You're leaving it to a stranger because you can't handle the fact that I won't become you. The next morning, I woke up to something I never expected. I went home that night feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. I sat in my fancy new apartment, the apartment Robert Henderson paid for, and stared at the walls. $87 million. I'd made $87 million by pulling someone away from a pit. It was absurd. It was insane. It couldn't be real. But the lawyers were real. The documents they'd shown me were real. and Robert Henderson's cancer was definitely real. I called my mom at like 11 p.m. "Jake, what's wrong?" She sounded worried immediately. "Mom, I need to tell you something absolutely crazy, and I need you to tell me I'm not losing my mind." I told her everything: the cancer diagnosis, the will, the $87 million. When I finished, there was silence on the line for a long moment. "Mom?" "That poor man," she said finally. "That poor. Mom, did you hear the part about $87 million? "I heard you, Jake," she said gently. "I also heard about a man who's dying and doesn't know how to fix his relationship with his daughter. I heard about a girl who lost her mother and is about to lose her father. And I heard about my son being put in the middle of something way bigger than he's ready for." "So what do?" I asked desperately. "What's the right thing?" she asked back. "Not the profitable thing. Not the easy thing. What's right?" I didn't sleep. Instead, I did something I never thought I'd do. I called Emma at 2 a.m. "Jake?" she answered after 4 rings, voice groggy. "What?" "I'm turning it down," I said. "The inheritance. I can't accept it." I heard rustling, like she was sitting up in bed. "What are you talking about?" "It's not mine, Emma. It's yours. Your family, your history, your dad's whole life. I can't just take that because I happen to be in the right place at the right time." "Jake, my dad's will is final. If you refuse, the shares don't come to me. They go into some corporate trust thing that the lawyers manage. You'd literally be handing control of the company to strangers." "Then we change the will," I said. "We convince him to leave everything to you." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You don't know my father. Once Robert Henderson makes a decision, that's it. God himself couldn't change his mind." "Then I'll give my shares to you as soon as I inherit them, I'll transfer them." "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why would you give up $87 million? "Because it's not mine," I said simply. "Because your family is broken enough without me making it worse. Because my dad taught me that money's not worth your soul." There was a long pause. Then, "Meet me tomorrow. The Starbucks on 6th Street, 9 a.m. We need to talk." The next morning, I got to Starbucks 15 minutes early, nervous and exhausted. Emma showed up right on time, wearing jeans and a UT hoodie, sunglasses covering what looked like a night of crying. "I talked to my dad last night after you called," she said, sliding into the chair across from me. "Actually talked for like 3 hours. First real conversation we've had in years." "And?" "And he told me things I never knew," she said, pulling off her sunglasses. Her eyes were red. "About my mom, about how he grew up poor in West Texas with nothing, and how terrified he was of ever being poor again. About how he poured everything into the company because he didn't know how to be a father, but he knew how to build things. About how he's been trying to buy my love with money for 20 years because he doesn't know any other way to show he cares." "Emma, he's a broken man, Jake," she continued. "And he's dying. And I've been so angry at him for so long that I forgot he's still my dad." "What are you saying?" I asked carefully. She leaned forward, intense. "I'm saying maybe you're the bridge we needed. My dad respects you, he listens to you, and you..." She smiled slightly. "You're just a genuinely good person who sees right through his money bullshit." "I don't understand what you want me to do." "I want you to accept the inheritance," she said firmly. "All of it, 49%. But I want you to actually be a partner, not just someone collecting checks. I want you to help me run the company, and I want you to help me figure out how to honor what my dad built without losing myself in it. Can you do that?" If I had known the truth then, I would have. Over the next 2 months, my life became a surreal blend of boardrooms and hospital rooms. Robert's cancer progressed fast, way faster than the doctors predicted. By November, he was in chemotherapy, losing weight, losing strength, but his mind stayed sharp, and he insisted on coming to the office whenever he could. Emma moved back to Austin permanently. She and I started having weekly dinners where we'd plan for the future of Henderson Construction, a future that felt increasingly urgent as Robert got sicker. The VPs and senior management slowly warmed up to me, when they realized I wasn't some random gold digger. Dale Patterson, my old foreman, actually got emotional when I told him I wanted to promote him to VP of Field Operations. "You serious, kid?" he'd asked, his gruff voice cracking. "You know the work better than anyone," I'd said, "and you kept an eye on me when I was just another guy in a hard hat." "Yeah, I'm serious." But the whole time, I felt like a fraud. I'd sit in budget meetings thinking about how I used to pack turkey sandwiches for lunch. I'd review multi-million-dollar project bids and remember eating ramen for dinner 3 nights a week. The money started hitting my accounts. A salary of $90,000 felt obscene after living on $50,000. I paid off my mom's mortgage in one payment, and she cried so hard I thought she'd pass out. "Jake, you didn't have to do this," she sobbed. "Yeah, I did," I said simply. "You worked 2 jobs your whole life so I could have what I needed. This is what you need." Then, in early December, Robert called me and Emma into his hospital room. He'd been admitted 2 days earlier with complications. He looked terrible, gaunt, pale, hooked up to a dozen machines. But his eyes were clear. "I need to tell you both something," he said, his voice weak. "Something I should have said a long time ago." Emma took his hand. "Dad, you need to rest." "No," he cut her off. "I need to say this while I still can. Jake, the night I met you, I didn't tell you the whole truth about why I offered you that job." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "I'd already updated my will," he said quietly. 3 days before Emma almost fell into that pit, I'd already decided to leave the company to someone outside the family because Emma had made it clear she wanted no part of it. I was actually planning to give it to Richard Keating, my lawyer. Then you saved Emma's life, and I saw something in you I hadn't seen in myself in decades. "What?" I whispered. "Selflessness," he said. "You didn't save her because you knew who she was. You didn't save her to get something out of it. You did it because it was right. And I thought, here's someone who might actually care about the people who work for me, someone who remembers what it's like to struggle, someone who won't turn this company into just another profit." Emma was crying quietly. I didn't know what to say. "I'm not a good man, Jake," Robert continued. "I was a terrible husband. I was a worse father. I built an empire, but I destroyed my family to do it. Don't make my mistakes. The company's important, but it's not everything. Emma," he looked at his daughter, "I'm so sorry I didn't figure that out sooner." "I know, Dad," she whispered. "I know." That's when everything I thought I knew came crashing down. Robert Henderson died on December 18th, exactly 6 months after his diagnosis. The funeral was huge. Over 1,000 people came. Employees, clients, competitors, politicians. Everyone had a story about Robert's brilliance, his vision, his determination. I gave a eulogy that I barely remember writing, talking about a man I'd known for only 4 months, but who changed my entire life. Emma was devastated. I mean, I expected her to be sad, but this was something else. She could barely get through the funeral. At the reception afterwards, held at the company headquarters, she just sat in her dad's office staring at his empty desk. "He was supposed to have more time," she said when I found her there. "The doctors said 6 months minimum. We got 4. "I'm so sorry," I said, sitting down next to her. "We were finally starting to understand each other," she continued, tears streaming down her face. "He was actually listening to me. We talked about maybe starting a foundation together, using some of the company profits for scholarships for kids whose parents couldn't afford college. He actually seemed excited about it. And now he's gone." The will reading happened 2 days after Christmas. Richard Keating gathered everyone in the big conference room. Emma, me, various relatives I'd never met, the senior management team. He read through the technical details and then came to the main point. "To my daughter, Emma Catherine Henderson, I leave 51% of Henderson Construction, controlling interest in all subsidiary companies, the family home in Westlake, and a personal trust fund of $32 million. To Jake Morrison, I leave 49% of Henderson Construction, a seat on the board of directors, and a personal trust fund of $12 million. The remainder of my estate is to be divided as detailed in the following sections." The room erupted. Distant cousins started yelling about being cut out. A nephew started threatening lawsuits. Emma's uncle, Robert's younger brother, stood up and pointed at me. "This is ridiculous," he shouted. He knew this kid for 4 months. 4 months. I've worked for this company for 30 years. "And you'll keep working for it, David," Richard said calmly, "as VP of Finance. Nothing about your position changes. But that nobody gets 49%? David's face was purple. He saved Emma from a construction accident, and now he's worth $90 million. This is fraud. This is my father's final wish, Emma said, standing up. Her voice was steel. "And if you contest it, I will fire you before the meeting adjourned. Individual meetings will be scheduled to discuss specific..." As everyone filed out, most of them shooting me murderous looks, Emma grabbed my arm. "We need to talk. My place. Tonight." Quick reminder, if you're invested in this story, hit that like button if you haven't already, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what happens next, because it gets even more insane. Emma's place turned out to be the Westlake house she'd just inherited, a sprawling 8,000 square foot mansion overlooking Lake Austin. I pulled up in my company truck feeling ridiculous. The last time I'd seen a house this big was when we were building one for some tech executive. She answered the door in sweatpants and a t-shirt, holding a glass of wine. "Want some?" "I probably shouldn't," I said. "I'm driving." "Stay," she said simply. "We have 12 guest rooms. Pick one." Inside, the house was beautiful but sad, clearly decorated by Robert's late wife, frozen in time from 20 years ago. Emma led me to a study lined with bookshelves where she'd spread out a bunch of documents on a huge oak desk. "These are the corporate files Richard gave me," she said. "All the details about the company's structure, our projects, our finances. I've been going through them for the past 3 days, and Jake, there's something weird." "Weird how?" She pulled out a folder and opened it. Dad had a separate investment account. It's not part of Henderson Construction's official book. It's listed under some holding company called Westlake Capital Partners. And according to these statements, there's $48 million in it. My mouth went dry. "What?" $48 million, she repeated. "I asked Richard about it, and he got really cagey. Said it was a personal investment vehicle and that the details were confidential. Then I started digging into what Westlake Capital Partners actually is. And Jake, the company was formed in 1998, the same year my mom left." "Emma, what are you saying?" She looked at me, and her eyes were hard. "I'm saying I think my dad was hiding money. A lot of money. And I think my mom left because she found out about it." We spent the next 4 hours going through documents. Emma had access to her father's personal files, and she was pulling out things I didn't understand. Offshore account statements, complex corporate structures, investment schedules. Finally, around 2 a.m., she found... "Oh my God," she whispered, staring at a printed email. "What?" She turned the laptop toward me. It was an email from 2003, from Robert Henderson to someone named Patricia Chen at a law firm in the Cayman Islands. Patricia. "Per our discussion, I need to ensure that the Westlake accounts remain completely separate from Henderson Construction's books. My daughter cannot know about these funds, not now, not ever. They're insurance for her future, should anything happen to the company. When she turns 25, you'll release the details to her as specified in our agreement. The funds came from legitimate sources, profits I took out of the company before going public in 1995. Everything is legal, but Emma's mother would have demanded I use this money differently, and I can't have that fight. This is for Emma's protect. Please confirm the trust documents are properly Robert. Emma had turned 25 3 months ago, in October, before her father died. He left you a secret trust, I said slowly. $48 million that you didn't know about. He lied to my mom, she said, her voice shaking. He had almost $50 million hidden away, and he let my mom think the company was everything. She left because she thought he cared more about Henderson Construction than about us, but he had all this money the whole time. Money that we could have had a life. We could have traveled together, spent time together. Instead, he worked himself to death, building an empire he'd already funded. Tears were running down her face. I didn't know what to say. There's more, she said, scrolling through more files. Look at the dates on these investments. Every single one of them was made right after a major life event. My 8th birthday, $2 million invested. My high school graduation, $5 million. My college enrollment, $8 million. He was building this nest egg for me, and he never told me. He let me think he was just this workaholic who didn't care, but he cared so much he hid money for my entire life. The next morning, I woke up to something I never expected. I ended up crashing in one of the guest rooms. When I woke up around 9 a.m., I found Emma in the kitchen making coffee, looking exhausted but calmer. "I called Patricia Chen," she said, handing me a mug. "The lawyer in the Cayman Islands. Turns out she's been trying to reach me for weeks, but she didn't have my current number. The trust was supposed to be released to me on my 25th birthday, but Dad was sick, and he kept postponing the meeting." "What did she say?" "There's a letter," Emma said. "Dad left a letter explaining everything. It's in a safe deposit box in a bank in downtown Austin. We can go get it today if you want to come with me." "Of course I'll come," I said immediate. 2 hours later, we were sitting in a private room at a Bank of America branch on Congress Avenue. The bank manager had brought us the safe deposit box, and inside was a single sealed envelope with Emma written on it in Robert's handwriting. Emma's hands were shaking as she opened it. Inside were 3 pages of handwritten text. She read it aloud, her voice breaking multiple times. "My darling Emma, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've discovered the Westlake account. I'm sorry for the secrecy. I'm sorry for so many things. When your mother left, she told me I had to choose, her and you, or the company. I chose wrong. I chose the company because I was terrified of being poor again, terrified of losing everything I'd built. But I also knew that if I kept working the way I was working, I'd burn out young. So I started moving money aside. Insurance. A nest egg for you, in case the company failed or in case something happened to me. I told myself I was protecting you, but really, I was protecting myself. I was justifying my choices. She'll be fine, I'd think. She'll have millions, even if I'm not there. It was the biggest mistake of my life. By the time I realized how wrong I was, you were 18 and hating me. I didn't know how to fix it, so I kept working, kept building, kept telling myself that someday I'd make it right. Then I got sick, and I ran out of time. I met Jake Morrison, and I saw what I could have been if I'd valued people over profit. I saw someone who dropped everything to help his family, who saved my daughter without thinking about what he'd get out of it. I saw the man I should have. The money in the Westlake accounts is yours. All of it. Use it however you want. But if you'll take an old dying man's advice, use some of it to live the life you actually want. Don't sacrifice everything for a company like I did. Build something better. I love you, Emma. I always have. I'm sorry I was so bad at showing it. Dad. By the time she finished reading, both of us were crying. Emma folded up the letter and just sat there, holding it like it was made of glass. He was trying, she whispered. All along, in his broken way, he was trying to take care of... Yeah, I said. He was. She looked up at me. I want to do what he suggested. I want to use this money to live different, and I want to transform Henderson Construction into something more than just profit. Something that actually helps people. Like what? Like paying our workers more than anyone else in the industry, she said, her voice getting stronger. Like offering full college scholarships to employees' kids. Like building affordable housing instead of just luxury developments. Like actually giving a damn about the communities we work. Your father would have said that's not profitable, I pointed out. My father was wrong about a lot of things, she said firmly, but he was right about you. So what do you say, partner? Want to help me build something better? I thought about my dad, who'd worked himself to death doing the right thing for his family. I thought about my mom, who'd sacrificed everything to give me a chance. I thought about Robert Henderson, who'd built an empire, but lost his family in the process. And I thought about Dale Patterson, and Miguel, and Chris, and Tommy, and all the guys in hard hats who did the real work while people like me sat in offices. Yeah, I said. Yeah, I do. If I had known what was coming, I would have. The next 6 months were chaos. Good chaos, but chaos. Emma and I restructured the entire company. we raised starting wages for field workers by 30%, which had every other construction company in Texas losing their mind. We started a scholarship program, full rides to any Texas public university for children of Henderson construction employees. We took on projects the old company would never have touched: affordable housing developments, community centers, renovations for underfunded schools. The VPs thought we were insane. David, Emma's uncle, quit in protest and immediately tried to start a competing company. It failed within 3 months, but the workers loved it. Morale shot through the roof. Suddenly, everyone wanted to work for Henderson Construction, which meant we could be pickier about who we hired, which meant our quality went up, which meant clients actually started paying premium prices for our work. This is not sustainable, Richard Keating told us in April during a board meeting. You're spending too much on labor and giving away too much profit. Our profit margin is down from 23% to 18%, Emma countered. We're still making money. We're just not hoarding it. And our employee retention is up 40%, I added. That saves us millions in training costs and recruitment. Richard looked at both of us like we were speaking another language. But the numbers didn't lie. By June, Henderson Construction was doing better than it had in 5 years. Then, in July, we got a call that changed everything. Jake Morrison, the voice on the phone said, "This is Detective Sarah Chen with the Austin Police Department Financial Crimes Unit. I need to speak with you regarding Robert Henderson's estate." My blood went cold. "What about it?" "I'd prefer to discuss this in person. Can you come to the station this afternoon and bring Emma Henderson with you?" We went together, both of us terrified. Detective Chen was a woman in her 40s, professional and direct. She sat us down in an interview room and slid a folder across the table. "We've been investigating some irregularities in Henderson Construction's financial records," she said. "Specifically, funds that were moved around in the months before Robert Henderson's death." "What kind of irregularities?" Emma asked, her voice steady but her hands gripping the table. "Someone accessed company accounts in September and moved $4 million to offshore accounts in the Bahamas. The transfers were made using Robert Henderson's login credentials, but the IP addresses show the activity came from someone else's computer." "Someone embezzled $4 million? I said, stunned. "That's what it looks like," Chen confirmed. "We've traced the transfers to accounts controlled by David Henderson, Robert's brother. We arrested him this morning." Emma gasped. "Uncle David stole from the company." "We believe he's claiming he had verbal authorization from Robert before his death to secure funds for operational expenses. But we can't find any documentation supporting that, and the transfers look suspicious. We wanted to inform you both since you're now the majority shareholders." "How much can we recover?" Chen grimaced. "That's the problem. The accounts have been emptied. The money was moved to cryptocurrency exchanges and then dispersed. We're still tracing it, but honestly, it's probably gone. I'm sorry." After we left the police station, Emma and I sat in her car in stunned silence. $4 million, she finally said. "Uncle David stole $4 million while my dad was dying." "Emma?" "He was at the funeral," she continued, her voice rising. "He gave a speech about family loyalty and honoring my dad's legacy, and the whole time he'd stolen $4 million from the company. From us, from the workers we're trying to help." I didn't know what to say. $4 million was a huge loss, even for a company our size. Then Emma started laughing. Actually laughing. "What's so funny?" I asked carefully. "My dad spent 40 years protecting this company from external threats," she said. "Competition, economic downturns, market changes, and in the end, the biggest threat was family, the person he trusted, the person he thought had his back." "We'll get through this," I said. "We'll tighten the budget, restructure some things." "No," Emma interrupted. "We're not changing anything. We're not cutting programs. We're not reducing wages. We're not punishing our workers because my uncle is a thief." "Emma, we don't have unlimited money." "I do," she said firmly. "I have $48 million in the Westlake Trust. I'm transferring $4 million to the company to cover what was stolen. Problem solved." "You can't do that," I protested. "That's your personal money, your security. And this company employs 300 people who depend on us," she shot back. "People like you were, like your mom was. People who work hard and deserve better than to be collateral damage in my family's dysfunction. My dad would have done the same thing. She was right. He absolutely would have. If you made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. Drop a like if you think we did the right thing, and leave a comment telling me what you would have done, and subscribe if you want more stories like this. That was a year ago. Emma transferred the money, and we prosecuted David to the full extent of the law. He's currently serving 5 years in federal prison for wire fraud and embezzlement. The company kept growing. We just landed a $200 million contract to build affordable housing complexes across central Texas. Miguel got promoted to site supervisor. Dale retired with a pension that let him buy a place in Florida. Tommy finally left his terrible roommate. Emma and I run the company together. She handles community relations and project planning. I handle operations and client relations. We have lunch together most days, usually at that same Starbucks on 6th Street, where she told me to accept the inheritance. Sometimes we talk about her dad. She's made peace with him, I think, with who he was, what he tried to do, where he failed. And me? I still can't quite believe any of this is real. I have more money than I'll ever spend. I live in a nice house in Clarksville that I actually own. My mom retired and volunteers at an after-school program for kids whose parents work multiple jobs, because that's who she is. I finished my degree, project management, obviously, and I teach a night class at ACC for adults trying to get into the construction industry. Last month, Emma and I were doing a site visit at one of our affordable housing projects. There was a crew pouring foundations, guys in hard hats working in the Texas heat, same as I used to do. And I saw this young kid, couldn't have been more than 20, being really careful about checking his measurements, making sure everything was perfect, even though no one was watching. "That's a good worker," I told the site supervisor. "Best one I got," he agreed. "Name's Carlos. Reminds me of you, actually. Always on time, always careful, never complain." I walked over and introduced myself. The kid nearly had a heart attack when he realized he was talking to one of the owners. "You do good work, Carlos," I told him. "Keep it up. We need people like you." "Thank you, sir," he said, looking like he might pass out from nervousness. As we walked away, Emma elbowed me. "You gonna save him from falling into a pit and make him a millionaire too?" I laughed. "Once in a lifetime is enough for me." "Good," she said, smiling, "because I've got enough family drama without adding more members." I learned a lot from Robert Henderson in the short time I knew him. I learned that money can build empires, but it can't buy back time. I learned that success without connection is just loneliness with a nicer car. I learned that sometimes the right thing and the profitable thing aren't the same, and when they're not, you choose the right thing anyway. But mostly, I learned that life can change in an instant. That one random Tuesday, you could be just another guy in a hard hat making $22 an hour, and a month later, you could be running a multi-million-dollar company. That kindness matters. That paying attention matters. That being in the right place at the right time and actually giving a damn about other people can change everything. My dad used to say, "Do the right thing, even when no one's watching." Especially when no one's watching. I pulled Emma back from that pit because it was the right thing. I didn't know who she was. I didn't know what it would mean. I just knew someone was about to get hurt and I could stop it. That's all any of us can do, really. See someone who needs help and help them. The rest, the money, the success, the transformation, that's just what happens sometimes when you choose to be the kind of person who acts instead of walks away. So if you're out there working hard, doing the right thing, taking care of your family even when it's hard, keep going. You never know what's around the corner. You never know which random Tuesday is going to be the one that changes everything. And if you're ever walking near a construction site, watch where you're going. Trust me on that.